Hello guys and welcome to another video. So today we're back at the lower levels of my bookshelf because I thought it was about time to make another Percy Jackson Unpopular Opinions video. And honestly, it's much more comfortable to roast you guys' opinions from the floor. So without further ado, let's look at your unpopular opinion and hot takes and roast them. Respectfully, of course. This video contains spoilers about a lot of Rick Riordan series, so watch at your own risk. Meg is actually underrated. I personally love her character. People say that she's immature, but hey, you can't blame her. She had an extremely hard past and an evil emperor wouldn't teach his kids manners. Fair enough. Also, she had good intentions and a good heart, saying that every living thing deserves a chance to grow. I don't hate Meg, I just don't like her as a character. It's one of those cases where I wouldn't have minded at all to see her as a minor character, as a side character, but just having her as a second lead was just a bit irritating to me. That being said, she was a kid, so she was realistic to me, but sometimes you just don't vibe with someone's personality, and that's okay. If Perachel became canon, they'd actually be a good couple. Don't get me wrong, I love Percabeth, one of my OTPs honestly, but judging from the Perachel scenes, they had great chemistry. I don't like Perachel, but I'm just saying that they would have been a great couple. I don't think they would have been a great couple. I think they would have started dating and then they would have realized that A, Percy didn't like Rachel romantically, he was just looking for a friend that was outside his Greek mythology family, that was outside all of this war going on in his life. And Rachel, on the other hand, just wanted an in to this magical land and magical life. They both got what they wanted, but what they wanted wasn't a romantic relationship. The feeling was friendship, but neither of them had friends before, so they didn't know that was the feeling. Both of them wanted something from the other. It just wasn't romantic, but it may be how it felt at the time for both of them, because they didn't understand those feelings. I'm not saying that they would have been a bad couple, I'm just saying that the chemistry wasn't there. Jiper was a great ship. They supported each other, they teased each other, and I love their chemistry. Isn't it Jasper? I think the ship name is Jasper. Could be wrong because I've never shipped them, but I feel like it's officially, canonically, Jasper. When they found out that their relationship was forced, they didn't break up. They stayed together. Honestly, it doesn't make sense that Piper realized that their relationship was forced an entire series later. I think I need to reread the Burning Maze, lol. I don't think that Jasper was a great ship. I also don't think it was the worst ship. I think it was a ship that needed to happen for both of the characters to grow, specifically Piper. Jason, I don't think the relationship really contributed anything to his character arc, but it really did a lot for Piper's. I do think that it makes sense that Piper realizes that most of her feelings were concocted by Hera a while after it happens because they were in the middle of a war and she was seeing Jason every single day. Forced proximity is really a thing that exists and that makes you develop feelings, specifically in that kind of life or death situations. You're like, okay, I'm just gonna grab on to this person and I'm just gonna go with it. There were feelings already there in her head and in her heart. She was like, okay, I know this is familiar, this makes me feel safe, so I'm just gonna hold on to this. And then when the war passed and when she started spending less time with Jason, she was like, oh, maybe it's not all me. I do think that she liked Jason and that she had romantic feelings for him. If it wasn't for Hera's intervention, maybe it would have just been like a small crush and that's it. There's a lot of Luke slander here, so let's keep going. Luke is such a bad character. Sorry for all the Luke lovers out there, but I hate Luke with a passion. Just because he sacrificed himself doesn't mean that he's suddenly good. His past consisted of grooming children. Okay, I don't think he groomed Annabeth. Let's get this clear. I do think it was weird, but I don't think it was Rick's intention to make Luke this creepy towards Annabeth. That scene that happened in the 5th book when he was like, do you love me or have you loved me or whatever? It was more of him feeling guilty of having betrayed her. So I wouldn't say he groomed her. Murdering people, that is true. That I will not give him a pass for. Persisting to destroy the gods, using people, breaking promises, and so much more. I do agree he is a bad person, but also has to be said, he was a kid and he did have a titan whispering in his ears and his dad neglecting him so much and his mother going crazy because of his dad. So was he justified? No, but did he have his reasons? Yes. Jason's death was good for narrative's purpose, but the scene itself was very underwhelming in my opinion. Now, I haven't read this book in like 5 years. When did it come out? Please tell me down below. I don't remember. But I read it when it came out, and I remember not knowing that that was gonna happen, getting to that scene and being like, is this actually happening? Are there consequences to actions in a Rick Riordan book? Is someone actually going to die in a quest? They always tell us that quests are dangerous, but we never see them die or like have any actual consequences. Seeing that was like, Rick went there finally, permanently, to someone who is in a ship, who's someone who was a main character through 5 books. It was interesting to see, and I liked it, and if I had a heart, I would have cried. It made me tear up, but I just don't really cry with books. But this one, I was like, damn, it almost got me there. So I was impressed. So I don't think it was underwhelming for me. I would have to read it again. Maybe it would be the second time around, but it really got me. Luke made a hero's choice, but didn't die a hero. To be honest, he was a massive creep and coward. I do agree with the first part. Luke did make a hero's choice, he sacrificed himself in the end, but I don't think that was enough to make him die a hero. One of the things that I always think about with Luke's character is that he only went back and decided that, man, this is not for me, when Kronos took over his body and it was affecting him personally. But while Kronos was outside of his body and he had like his own thoughts and his own body and control over his anatomy, he didn't really care. So I believe that that last act of selflessness was actually rooted in selfishness, because he's like, oh, now it's affecting me, now I don't agree with it anymore. I think it was a hero's choice, but didn't die a hero. Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard is the best series in the Riordanverse. I find Magnus to be an extremely relatable character, and he's also my favorite first-person narrator. Okay, so my favorite first-person narrator is Percy, but Magnus is my second favorite. I love him. I've always found him so relatable because he's not as much of a badass, and he just like really cares. He's a healer. He tries to fight, but his sword, he doesn't fight with it in his hand. It fights by itself. So he's a lover, not a fighter. Very different from every other protagonist that we have seen thus far. Still very funny, still very brave in his own way, and I just love to see it. So I love Magnus. I don't think his series is the best. Maybe it's my second favorite. I really want to reread it because I've only read it once, but I know I loved it. I dislike Frank more than Jason. I don't know if this is a hot take. I feel like in the bottom tier of everyone's ranking of the 7 are Frank and Jason. That's pretty normal. Also, we see more of Jason than of Frank. I think Jason feels more like a well-rounded character. I never thought I'd hear myself say that. I feel like Piper had a lot of potential, but was just on the mess side. I really wanted to like her a lot, but I could never connect to her as well as I did with other characters. I especially didn't like the manipulation aspect of Jasper. I'm so glad they broke up. I agree. I've always liked Piper more in headcanons than in canons. I think she had a lot of potential, but just the way that Rick wrote her in that specific time just wasn't it. And that's why I've liked her more, seeing her through other people's eyes in the Trials of Apollo and in the other books that she has appeared on since then. Children of the Minor God should get the spotlight more than the children of the 12 Olympians. Don't get me wrong, I like Percy and the gang, but I just gets boring after a while. I agree with this, not that it gets boring, but I did read like a Tumblr post, I don't know what, the other day, that said that after the ending of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, it would have made sense for the 7 to not be made up by only kids of the 12 major gods, which was the case. It would have made sense for like minor god children to actually save the world this time and to be given the spotlight. So I think Rick just chose them because it had like the easiest powers to explain and the most recognizable gods, but it would have been really fun to see like minor gods having important children. Zoe Nightshade was an underwhelming character. She was in only one book as a side character, so I didn't get attached to her. I don't think she was an underwhelming character. Some characters only appear in one book, and that makes sense narratively. Here, I think it makes a lot of sense for her not to have appeared before and for her deserve to die because there's consequences to actions, which, you know me, I love to see. I got attached to her. Sometimes you don't need 3 books to get attached to a character. If Percy had died in the first book, I would have been really upset as well. That's not to say that they're on the same level, because obviously we're in Percy's head. Sometimes you can get attached to a side character who dies in the first book they're in. That just depends on the reader. It's totally fine. The whole Percy Jackson franchise gives some strong 2000 vibes, at least for me. That's why the recent series like Magnus Chase and Trials of Apollo were not that great. I don't understand. Do you mean that it doesn't give off that 2000 vibes anymore? I would agree. It doesn't. It's more like modern, even though Rick says it's like timeless and there's not a specific time period that it's set in. However, I did still like Trials of Apollo and Magnus Chase, just not as much. I wouldn't say it's because of the time period vibes, but maybe? This is a long one. I don't know if this is controversial because no one really ever talks about Frank in general. That's true. But I don't like how Rick Riordan handles Frank's character. I read the books when I was around 8 and I really connected with Frank as he was one of the only chubby characters in the Riordanverse, and I was a very heavy and insecure kid, but then Rick just made him buff and conventionally attractive. I really wouldn't have had as much of a problem with it as I do if he wasn't treated as a valuable character only after he lost weight. I don't think this was intentional on Rick's part, and I still love the books and Frank's character, but this really upset me as a kid, and it still kind of pisses me off now. I agree. It came out of left field. Why does Frank have to be buff? Like, he was already in shape, even though he was a bit on the, bigger side. He clearly was in shape because he's surviving all of this, and he does archery, and he does all the other things that the other ones do. I also don't like that he becomes, such a huge dude, because Hazel is, 13 to 14, actually 13, and she's, small. So together, to have, such a huge dude, going out with a younger girl who's also so much smaller than him, I don't like it. So yeah, I think he could have kept Frank just being good old Frank, and no one would have complained. I haven't watched the movies yet. I know about how bad they are, but I might just watch them out of boredom, I would say that you should watch the movies. Any fan should watch the movies of anything that they like if they have an adaptation. Not just because you're bored, they're there just to understand why people hate them. Any book that I've read, I will watch the adaptation, even if I know I'm going to hate it, just because I'm interested in knowing what they think has to be changed to make the adaptation good. Do I suffer? Sometimes, yes. Does it take years out of my life? Yes. Does it make my hair fall off of stress? No, it's not that big of a deal. It's just an adaptation, so I would recommend you watch them. They're not good, but I want you to form your own opinions of them. And also, after you accept that it's not that big of a deal, it's literally just a movie of a book that you like, you can make fun of it, and then that's a lot of fun as well. I enjoyed the King Chronicles more than Magnus Chase. Fair enough. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't agree. I like the way that Magnus Chase is written better, but I feel like King Chronicles might be a better trilogy just because I remember the last book in the Magnus Chase trilogy not being that good of an ending. I liked it, but as the very ending, the final battle, was a bit underwhelming. I don't remember anything about the last book in King Chronicles, so let me know, was the final battle underwhelming, or was it Battle of Manhattan level of good? I feel like that's one of the main problems with Rick. I don't think he's very good at writing last books, at least with Blood of Olympus and Magnus Chase. I did like Tower of Nero, but is that one of his problems? Is he better at starting series than ending them? Female characters are allowed to live their own lives and make their own decisions without taking a guy's feelings into consideration. Is that a hot take in life, or about Percy Jackson specifically? Because obviously I do agree, but do you mean that Rick doesn't allow this, or that it just doesn't? I don't understand. People like Jason and Jasper more when they died, broke up. I don't think people like Jasper more when they died or broke up. I think that people like Jason more when he died, me included. Rick made the Norse gods too goofy. With this, I 100% agree. When I was reading it, I was like, every book that Rick writes, the gods feel more stupid and easier to trick. I don't know a lot about Norse mythology outside of what Rick has written, so I don't know if it's accurate for them to be that crazy. Also, it's kind of the vibe in Rick Riordan books for gods to have lived so much that they're out of touch with reality and just kind of kooky, but it just felt like they were stupid, toddler level easy to trick. Woo! Okay, here starts the good stuff. Leo stans, get ready for this. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one, but please do not attack me for my opinion, because we all should respect each other. Leo is my least favorite of the 7. He annoyed me so much in Mark of Athena and the House of Hades, and maybe it's just me, but his constant flirting with girls annoys me a lot. There has been a huge generational shift on people's opinion on Leo, because when I first read it and when the books were first coming out in 2013, people were all over Leo. Like, McShizzle was everywhere. He was the moment. He was the it boy. Percy was old news, and Leo was here to charm everyone. Does he flirt with everyone, with every girl? Yes, he does. Would it bother me if I read it now? Probably. Not because he flirts with everyone, but just because he keeps flirting when girls are obviously not interested. I'm like, Leo, calm down, respect women, treat them as people, not as just like beings that you can flirt with. You know, there's more to women than a potential life partner. With all that, I still like Leo. I still relate to him. He's very sarcastic, and he has a lot of self-loathing that translates to him being mean or sarcastic to other people. He can be kind of misunderstood, but I do understand why people don't like him as much right now. He was just the moment when it came out, and he was kind of like yeah, I'm not gonna finish that thought. I don't know where it was going. The Lost Hero is better than Son of Neptune. I think I would agree. It just made more sense as a book. The plot was more interesting, and I think more things happened in it. The Sea of Monsters is better than the Titan's Curse. Now, this kind of slander I will not take. I mean, it's your opinion. Obviously, I respect it. But even though the Sea of Monsters has elements that I would like better, like a lot of Percabeth moments, and just them, for a big chunk of the book, it's just them, so I love it. But the fact that it follows the same structure as the Odyssey made it predictable for me and not very special. Sea adventures for me don't work as well as road trip adventures when there's an actual road involved, so I like that better. I also like that in the Titan's Curse we see a lot of new characters, and that was really interesting, specifically because we go on a quest with 3 girls and 2 guys, and we've never seen that before. So there was a lot of female characters. Granted, spoilers, 2 of them out of the 3 of them died, but I did really like seeing that nonetheless. We didn't get as much Annabeth, obviously, because she was kidnapped by you know, the Manticore. I don't know. We don't get to see a lot of Annabeth because of obvious reasons, but I still like the things that we got to see, so I will die on this hill. I like the Titan's Curse better. I know it's a lot of people's least favorite, but I just don't agree. Also, I bet they find a way, if they get to the 3rd season in Disney Plus, I bet they find a way to have Annabeth have more scenes, maybe like more dream sequences, or since we're not necessarily only following Percy's point of view, we might see more scenes with her holding up the sky, with her and Artemis, or her and Luke. I'm excited to see that. Maybe even flashbacks of Talia and her time with Annabeth. I didn't like Trials of Apollo. In fact, I got so bored of it that I picked up and read the entirety of Magnus Chase while I was in the middle of the Tyrant's Tomb. I didn't like the new characters in Trials of Apollo, and I didn't like the narration. Okay, by same, I literally read the whole Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard series in 5 days, and it took me over a week to get through the Tyrant's Tomb, the worst book in the series, in my opinion. I also picked it up while reading Trials of Apollo and enjoyed it so much more. Okay, I just had to check. Tyrant's Tomb is book number 4 in the series, and I would agree. That book, while I read it, I was like, nothing is happening. We're just at Camp Jupiter, enjoying life. Yes, Jason is dead, and we have to carry his body the whole way to Camp Jupiter, but I don't think that book has anything to it. It was boring. I would agree. Yeah. And we also get to see the most boring characters, and but I'm just not a fan of Camp Jupiter. It's not for me. Camp Half-Blood forever. Nico D'Angelo is the most powerful in the series, especially since he started training at a much younger age. I do agree that the age at which you start training is very important, but I don't think it's the most important factor since Percy is super overpowered. I think the things you go through are also very important because Percy has gone through a lot of shit, and I feel like that's made him much more powerful than a lot of other demigods who haven't been through all of those life experiences and therefore have not gotten the X point. I think Nico and Percy are probably very close in power, but as I said, Percy's just overpowered in the series overall because he's been there for so long. Rick is just like, okay, what else can I show them that's new? And he just keeps giving him more powers and more power overall. So, hot take. I really hate Jason laughing my ass off. Like, he's suddenly a hero for not being homophobic. I don't get it. And also I just found him really boring. He was the reason it took me a lot longer to read Heroes of Olympus than Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I don't think he's a hero for not being homophobic. At the time, it was groundbreaking for Jason to react the way that he did. Not for real people, but for Nico in that moment. I don't think that any of the 7 would have reacted badly to Nico being forced out as gay. However, it was Jason at that moment, so he gets the praise for not being homophobic. You have to remember, this was published like 10 years ago, so it was a very big reveal, and a lot of the fandom took it the wrong way and were homophobic. So that's why Jason gets praise, because he is better than a lot of the fandom, specifically the parents that read it. So should he get praise for not being homophobic? No, but it's not exactly ahead of its time. But in terms of something that was written by a middle grade author, it kind of was. I don't hate him, but I also think, you know, there's some good parts to him. Also, we shouldn't just praise him for the bare minimum, but I think he was a good friend to Nico starting at that point. Percabeth is not the best ship, Solangelo is. Honestly, it's kind of hard to beat a ship that's been around for more than a decade, and it's literally impossible to say if a ship is better than another because it's completely subjective and it depends on your own likes and dislikes. So it's impossible to say that one is better than the other. That being said, Percabeth is better. I do love Solangelo though, they're so cute. From what I'm reading, saying Luke didn't die a hero isn't so much of a hot take anymore, or an unpopular opinion, because that's all I'm getting. An unpopular opinion nowadays would be saying that Luke did die a hero. Percy doesn't deserve Nico's friendship. I think that is hot garbage. I think he does. I think they should work more on it because of course they have such history together, but Percy did a lot of things to Nico and Nico did a lot of things to Percy. They should talk through it, maybe not be best friends, but there's always going to be a link between them, always going to be a shared history between them, and I think they could work through their emotional trauma together because their lives do have a lot of parallels between them, and I think it would be better for both of them to talk and work through their traumas together to help each other and be like friends that kind of feel like family or cousins in a way. You know, you love them, but you don't necessarily always have to like them or always have to engage with them. So every Christmas you see them and you're like, oh, I love you guys, but you don't necessarily have to be best friends for that. Clarisse is a jerk. Yeah, that's kind of the main point. The main point of the first couple of books is that Clarisse is the worst. She is a bully. And also that it comes from her father. It's the cycle of violence repeating itself. Aries bullies Clarisse and Clarisse bullies everyone around her to feel good and to feel like she's making her father proud. Clarisse does learn, you know, she was a teenager under a lot of pressure and giving kind of free range to bully people. Like, there should be someone to stop that in Camp Half-Blood. There was a lot of bullying in that first series. But yeah, it's kind of the point. Clarisse is a jerk. She grows out of it and she becomes a better person. Valgrace is better than Jiper. Again, isn't it Jasper? Also, Valgrace, it took me a while, but I think it's Leo Valdez and Jason Grace, so their surnames put together. I don't think it's better. I like them as friends. Whew, it would have been such a different series if Valgrace was canon. Let me think about it. There are some ships that you're like, oh, this comes out of left field, but not actually. But this one, both of their characters are so obsessed with Piper and just having a significant other respectively that I don't think they could have made sense romantically just in the way that it was written. Caleo is toxic, that I do agree with, and Leo deserves so much better than Calypso, that I don't agree that much. Leo first needs to learn how to love himself, to then learn how to love a woman, if that's what he is going to do. Silena and Clarisse are an okay ship. Silena and Beckendorf is way better. I like them both, honestly. I like Silena and Beckendorf. I think they were very wholesome. Obviously, at the end, there was some things that, whoa. But Silena and Clarisse, I think, God, I hope they show more of that in the show because there was a clear parallel between that and, you know, what's his name? Achilles and Patroclus. And I would really like to see that more in depth. Leo is a bully. Thank you, a healthy dose of bread. I think that's not honestly such a hot take anymore. It's the same thing with Luke. People nowadays really hate Leo. I do like his character more in Heroes of Olympus than I do in Trials of Apollo. Leo, in my memories, is great, so you can't beat that nostalgia, I'm sorry. Another, Leo is overrated. You dare say that to Leo McSchissel? Yeah, because it's true, but that is why it's a hot take. Please don't hate me. I think that's true. He's still an amazing character, but he's not worth simping over. And honestly, I think the fandom ruined his character. Now that is an interesting take. The fandom ruined his character. What does that mean? I need an essay written on this because I think that's very interesting, but I don't necessarily know what you're referring to, so please let me know down in the comments. Will is honestly a boring character. He only appears in 2 books prior to Blood of Olympus, then is kind of just in a relationship with Nico for some reason. I don't get it, but he isn't a bad character necessarily. This always baffles me, like, oh, he's only in 2 books and his relationship comes out of nowhere. Well, that's what happens with side characters. We're obviously not going to see them start going out. They just do, because everything a side character does happens off screen and off page. It's literally the same thing with Silena and Beckendorf. We did see the start of a possibility to them at the end of Blood of Olympus, because Will was like, yo, come help me in the infirmary, and Nico was like, oh, okay. So we did see this start. I don't get why seeing that it comes completely out of the blue. It doesn't. They have the possibility and they're like, oh, maybe there's something there, and they start feeling that chemistry, and then like 6 months later, when Trials of Apollo starts, they literally just started dating. And then, thanks to the Son of the Star, we get to see the progression of their relationship, which is, I feel like, what a lot of people were missing. So there you go, it's there. It happened progressively, and I love to see it. So no, it didn't just happen suddenly. Did you read the ending of Blood of Olympus? They're side characters. What more do you want? If you want to talk about things that happen suddenly, it's the relationship between Piper and Jason. At the end of The Lost Hero, they're not boyfriend and girlfriend. At the end of The Lost Hero, we just get Piper being like, oh, I'm going to make him fall in love with me for real this time. And then, boom, jump forward to their next appearance in Mark of Athena. They're dating. Did we see those 7 months? No, we did not. So if you want to talk about jumping from 0 to 100, that's where you have it. And they're main characters. I think that we shouldn't have had that. But I don't really care for that relationship either way, so there's that. That's it for today. That's all of the unpopular opinions that we have time to talk about. I hope you liked this video. Please leave a like if you did. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with my hot takes or the other hot takes we saw in this video today. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click that bell button so you get notifications every time I post a new video. I post videos just like this every single Friday, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye!